Lieutenant Elijah let go of Josiah. The crab walked backwards 4 or 5 steps before jumping to his feet. He's quickly face to face with Elijah. Lieutenant Elijah said, "You want to do this again?" Josiah looked at him, taking a protective stance, and responded, "Are you some sort of G.I. Joe?" Elijah's lips began to curl up, forming a smile. The dirt on his face made his teeth shine in the moonlight, giving him a comforting and pleasant look. He chuckled and said, "Yes, something like it." But more like a Navy SEAL, Josiah looked at the man with admiration in his eyes and said, "I really never met someone who was really in the military before," letting his guard down. As Lieutenant Elijah and Josiah chatted and became acquainted, Elijah used his training to create a rapport with Josiah. So that way, he could figure out what was really going on. Elijah knew he shouldn't trust Josiah, but the boy seemed likable and trustworthy. Elijah continuously had to remind himself that while he was a child, he had tried and attacked him to begin with, until Elijah figured out exactly what the game was, who the players were, and how it worked. He was going to make Josiah his confident informant. Elijah, with a low, calm voice, started asking Josiah, "Well, son, tell me about this game. Who are the players? What do you mean, game? Are you okay?" Josiah was in awe with the fact that Elijah referred to him as soon as this is the first time Josiah had ever been called son by a father figure. It didn't matter that they barely knew each other, as Josiah grew up rough, and having Elijah's approval meant way more to him than he felt like it should. Nevertheless, he found himself wanting to impress Elijah. Also, Josiah felt that if Elijah was telling the truth, and he truly was a Navy SEAL, it gave him a chance to actually escape, or even a possibility chance of winning if they teamed up. Josiah was a very intelligent, mature boy, as fate would have it. The world had been cruel and unkind to the boy, and had stolen his youth. Elijah could tell that while Josiah said he was only 17, his life experience could be seen in the boy's eyes, dictating that he was much older. Being a lieutenant, Elijah had seen this look more times than he cared to count. It was literally his reason for becoming an officer, and the same reason he was retiring. He just couldn't handle seeing all the pain children were caused in life. Elijah was raised to respect the elders and the youngest of the community. As they couldn't protect themselves, it was his duty to protect them, making it his own personal life mission. However, a life mission like that can definitely take it to one person. After 25 years with the Twinningville Emergency Response Team and being a civil servant, he hadn't told anyone yet, but he had literally just filed his paperwork for retirement the day before. Feeling empathy for Josiah, Elijah leaned up against the tree for support and began to dig in his pockets, looking for something, anything to help them. "Yes, Josiah, how long has this been going on? How long have you been here? Do you know what is happening next?" Upon Elijah's mention of the game, Josiah immediately stiffened his body, showing the words alone startled him, bringing Josiah back to his reality, as he had been lost in thought and meditation. Praising God as Josiah knew God answered his prayers, internally outweighing the possibilities and probabilities of survival. Josiah, with a clear, sharp, and direct whisper, "You can't be so loud. You've got to be quieter, or they'll hear you. By the way, what is your name? Do you have anybody looking for you? Is there anybody coming?" A little taken back by Josiah's boldness, Elijah dropped his tone to a whisper and said, "My fault. My name is Elijah. Who will hear us?" In a whisper that allowed Elijah to barely hear him, with a serious look on his face, Josiah said, "Okay, Elijah, listen close. The people that are hunting us, the people that stole you. I haven't quite figured out who they are, but while it looks like we're free right now, we are in a cage or a enclosure of some sort." Josiah waited a second to see Elijah's response. Seeing the lieutenant was paying attention, Josiah continued speaking again. "Have you ever seen them shows where the really rich people have so much money they don't know what to do with? Well, I come to the conclusion I believe that's what's going on here." Josiah then looked at Elijah as he felt like his story was unbelievable. Josiah, hearing the words come out of his mouth for the first time, realized how absurd it sounded to himself. However, Elijah had been in the military and then was a police officer for 10 years before being a detective for 5, and finishing out the last 10 years as a special unit sergeant, then being promoted to lieutenant just a few years ago. He had seen a lot of hideous, unimaginable, and undescribable things, the things that nightmares are made up of. Elijah sighed, as he immediately believed the boy. He had no choice but to believe Josiah, as he himself had seen things that are truly only seen in the deepest, darkest nightmares of sociopaths. As human beings can be quite disturbed, he very shortly figured out after joining the military and becoming a Navy SEAL. Elijah tried to make himself believe that the horrific things he had seen in the military, or military disturbances, as his PTSD counselor and psychiatrist described, it was due to the fact that they were at war. However, upon joining the police department, he soon realized that people were truly just that disturbed. So, while Josiah's story seemed unrealistic to some, Elijah considered the options and could not risk not believing Josiah. So with a nod, he gestured for Josiah to continue as he listened intensively. Josiah spoke in a low, so quiet tone as not to be heard by anybody other than Elijah. I think we found ourselves in a game of survival of the fittest, basically. Winner gets life, loser gets death. Just then they heard a twig break, off in the distance. He threw up his hands to suggest that Elijah shouldn't speak. Josiah had fear in his eyes, looked at Elijah and said, "Follow me and be as quiet as you can. They're doing the roundup." Josiah grabbed Elijah by the arm and yanked him, leading him in the direction he was running. Elijah and Josiah took off on a full-blown run. Both men were in pretty good shape and were able to keep up with each other easily. After running for about 15 or 20 minutes straight without a break, Josiah rounded the corner of a giant boulder and disappeared. Immediately, Elijah came to a halt, his head and eyes darting around trying to find Josiah in the dark night. Just then he felt something cooling the back of his collar of his shirt. Just before he went to protect himself, he heard Josiah say, "Quickly in here." Without haste, the two disappeared into a natural-made structure resembling a cave. They leaned up against the boulder trying to control their panting. But the only thing that can be heard in the night is the racing of their hearts. They heard footsteps outside. That night, as he got Elisa, who had formerly been known as Sahara, ready for a nap, Justin sat in a wooden rocking chair, and a beautiful baby girl princess nursery